Adventure in History. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, and yeah, I'm a guy that does history stuff. I teach history for a living, and we come here and we meet once or twice a week, and we talk history, and we have a good time. And we goof off when we make bad pop culture references, or maybe good pop culture references. It depends on your...
Friends,
Romans.
countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to
Praise him. Thanks for that, DJ Cognac. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Meg. And hey, Ethan. Yeah, so... hey, Honeycomb, welcome. So I guess what I was saying is that it really depends on your particular interpretation or love of bad puns and pop culture references and such. But I think we have a good time. Takes ears and throws them off on stage. I got that movie reference. What does... / that is a so the little, like, apparently hitting O goes to the outro screen because I forgot that I made hotkeys for for OBS, and I just never use them. So this little guy right here, the O with the slash mark, is used pretty frequently for just like going like, hey. Welcome Foggage and welcome Figment. Yeah, so it's just like, hi. That's, or at least that's the way that people use it that I have interpreted. If it means something else, you know, I guess I've been using it wrong. And that's quite possible because I try to stay hip to the scene, but everybody knows that I'm getting older and the scene's not getting any younger. So, you know, it is what it is, and times move on. So, alas and alack. Anyway, welcome everybody. We're going to talk adventures in history tonight, and we are starting a new phase. Da-da. Yep. So, to catch everybody up, if you have not heard the spiel before, we are covering history chronologically, but because so many things happen consecutively, we can't just cover every single day by day, because that would be massively confusing and it would be ultimately impossible to follow. So what we have been doing is chunking things up. And our first sort of phase was what we called prehistory, where we did basically everything from the beginning of humanity all the way through when we developed writing. Then we did a phase that was sort of the what we would consider early kingdoms, early aged things, pre-Bronze Age cultures. Then we did a big Bronze Age unit as Unit 3, or Phase 3. Phase 4 was basically the Iron Age and the beginning of the Iron Age all the way up until Alexander the Great. And then we did a really big phase that was pretty much just all elephants. It seemed like every stream that we did for Phase 4 was just elephants and more elephants, and selling your daughter for elephants, and the Romans trying to outlaw elephants, and elephants. Marsha. And then Phase 5 was what we just wrapped up, which was about 200 BC to about 1 BC. So yes, we are now in Phase 6, which is 1 to 100, so basically the first century. Elephants are great. Weapons of mass destruction. They're lovely and beautiful. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we get to talk about elephants tonight as a throwback, but not really a throwback because it's contemporary. Set phasers for 6. Indeed. So yeah, we're in a new phase, and as always in our new phases, we sort of move from the kind of the international date line almost. Right here in the middle, this is where the day starts. So this is sort of where our phase starts, and then we move geographically across the planet following the rotation of the Earth. So we will get back to all of those cool things that I know people were excited about. Well, I mean, I guess people might have been excited about China as well. I get excited about history just in general. But if you are, you're big fans of your Persians, we'll get back to Parthia. If you're a big fan of the Romans, we will get back to the Romans. If you're a big fan of what's going on over here in the New World, we'll get back to that in this phase. But we will start, as always, over here in China. Out with the BC, in with AD. Indeed. People don't give cheeky elephants the recognition they deserve. Irreverent elephants are relevant. That's hard to say. I feel like you might have typed that on purpose just to see if I could say it on stream. And if so, challenge accepted. Irrelevant elephants are relevant. That does very much twist the tongue, though. All right, so I feel like I had something else to say, and I can't remember what it was. It may or may not come to me as we're going along. I might have a moment of inspiration midway through the stream and just go, "Ow!" I don't know if that will happen or not, but let's just, I guess, move on with where we were and what we're doing and what we're talking about. So we are going to talk tonight about China. And last we spoke about China, and again, if you weren't around last time we spoke about China, do not feel bad. I know that not everybody can catch every episode, and we have people that are newer to the stream, and you should never feel like you have to hear what we talked about last week or the week before or the month before or 6 months ago. Yeah, we've actually been doing this show now for over a year. I very quietly allowed that to pass. I did not feel like I needed to do some sort of big, like, 1 year Streamiverse 3 thing, because it just felt a little hollow. But yeah, we've been at the show now for over a year. We're on episode 53 of the main series, and up into the 30s of viewer requests. So we're moving right along. But don't feel like you need to have watched all of those to catch up. I teach and talk, and we cover things in a self-contained way. So each episode is quite able to stand on its own. So if you're interested, you can go back and watch VODs of previous periods of time or previous particular eras of history. But do not feel as if you need to watch all of that to get this stuff, because we're really just here to have fun, and nobody should feel like they have to study to keep up, right? So basically, what we're left with at the end of our last discussion, we can't annoy you in the VODs, though. Moose, you don't annoy me when you're here. That's the thing. I think that there's an attempt at good-natured ribbing, but I actually appreciate that. Stupid face. I appreciate the banter. It fills in for the lack of social interaction that I have in my day-to-day life. I sit most days in my office at work, which is a cinder block room that is about 10 by 7. And I have a window, but they have recently, well, not recently, the window used to face the outside. And about 8 years ago, they added onto the building, and my window now faces a covered breezeway, and it's under a stairwell. So my window opens to black dankness, which is sort of like a bit of a metaphor, perhaps, but I don't know how far I want to take that metaphor. So yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of the back and the forth. So I don't mind the banter or the attempts at window problems. Yep. problems with Windows. Been there, done that. Anyway, the dynasty that we're going to talk about tonight mostly is called the Han Dynasty. Not Han's, Han Dynasty. But the Han Dynasty had been in a bit of a trouble spot. The Han Dynasty had been put together by a sort of, well, I mean, he actually was a peasant that had worked his way up to emperor, a guy named Liu Bang, who had put the empire together back in the 200s BC. And the empire had run for a fairly nice clip for about 200 years. But because of some internal politics with various clans of nobles, the dynasty was in a bit of a bad place. And emperors became very young, and regents, a regent is a person who sort of runs the country during the period of time that a child emperor or ruler is on the throne. These regents began to cause a lot of consternation, a lot of back and forth, because you get lots of family politics. The powerful families of nobles inside of China are going to hold power and influence for centuries, and a lot of the families that were really big then are still around today. So what we are left with at the end of the 1st century BC, the 0 or like the 1 BC era, is a very weak emperor who is being sort of ruled over by a regent by the name of Wang Mang. Unelected officials being the power behind the unelected leader. Political inception. Do they have NFL drafts back then? No. No, they don't. Wang Mang. It's this guy. Yep. So this guy is going to officially be related to the emperor by marriage. And the emperor's mother was from this guy's family, and he's sort of like an uncle or an older cousin, once or twice removed. If that arrow has been a bit lower. That's a hairpin. It's a hairpin. It's not an arrow. Anyway, Wang Mang is deciding that he should really be in charge. And at 9 AD, he decides, I'm just gonna take over. And so he pushes out the official Han Dynasty ruler, and he declares himself the king or the emperor of a new dynasty that's called the Shen Dynasty. And you go, where did he get the name Shen? Well, ironically, or maybe not ironically, maybe he was just bad at naming things, but Shen Dynasty literally just means new dynasty. Not particularly adventurous with your naming scheme there, Wang Mang. Anyway, there are, of course, people that don't like this idea, and of course he decides, I'm just going to kill you. And he kills a lot of people that were trying to keep him from doing this, including some members of his own family and some of the leading members of a couple of other clans. And he's going to basically just take the throne, and he realizes that he is never going to be very happy of a person when it comes to dealing with the noble families. So if you know that the noble families hate you, you got to get the people on your side. And this is what's going to be sort of his thing. He's going to try to position himself as the people's emperor, a true populist leader. And he starts to try to sort of cast the old imperial clan as evil and as greedy and as the problem with China. Here we go, killing family members again. Right? Politically, may have been a clever move to separate the old guard. Yes, this is actually exactly what he's doing. We're getting rid of the old people, and we're now going to govern by the people and for the people, as long as it benefits me. New Dynasty, eh? We had a new deal, right? Yeah, there we go. They just had a Dowager Emperor. Yes, indeed. You can't say no to any of those, so it's more like a military draft, but also sometimes for just like marrying some for power. Yes, pretty much. And actually, the Grand Dowager Empress was the lady that sort of got this guy indirectly in charge. She was the grandmother of the child emperor, and thought that this Wang Mong guy was going to be more or less all right, and then he turned out to really not be all right, and he ends up taking over everything. So first thing to do, you got to get rid of the power of the imperial clan. So the Liu clan, which had been running the Han Dynasty, he starts pulling all their power away. He starts trying to give away all their land, and he starts trying to strip all of their money and possessions away from them. Of course, he's going to hold on to this for the good of the people. He's also going to start trying to do land reforms, which always go over really well. And anytime you hear land reforms in the ancient world, almost certainly what this means is trying to take money away from the rich people who have hoarded the land and trying to make land available for people that are poor and don't have any. And those go over during various ways at various periods of time. But what's going to be really interesting here is that Wang Mong is going to lean really, really heavy into the Confucianism. So if you're unfamiliar with Confucianism, it encourages people to follow the rules. And it has a lot of specific tenets on how people inside of the government should operate. And it has a special place for the emperor, and the Confucianist teachings and philosophical tenets really push this idea that the emperor was there because heaven, or Tian, as the Chinese refer to it, wanted him to be there. And of course, this is going to be religious pandering to the populist masses in order to try to get them to support him. And this is actually going to seem to be fairly effective, because he manages to hold on to power for almost 20 years. And once it's clear that there's not going to be any immediate threat, I shouldn't say any serious immediate threat to his position, he just goes on about doing the emperor thing. Right? So, up to the north of China, in this region in here, there was a large existing confederacy / kingdom of a group of people called the Xiongnu. And then he slipped on a banana peel. Yeah, the Xiongnu were a group of people, and we've talked about them in the past, so if you're interested, you can go back and watch some of the streams where we've talked about the Xiongnu before. They were a semi-nomadic group of people that had become much more sedentary over the course of the last 200 years or so. They were organized under a central leader who had the title Chanyu, and they had been intermittent but serious pests along the northern border of China. And Wang Mong sort of seized the opportunity of the Xiongnu as something that he could maybe go conquer, right? So he's got a lot of the people on his side, but you sort of need to get the nobles on your side too. And if you can prove to be a competent general and lead the troops, or at least pick competent generals that can go lead the troops, if you can get some wins behind you, right, this is going to bring a lot of more people onto your side. So he's going to send a really big army up to the northern reaches of China with the intent of locating, pinning down, and then defeating the Xiongnu army, or at least running off some of these raiders. But this is going to be a bit of an unfortunate turn of events for him, because he isn't as smart as he thinks that he is. And when he sends his entire army up into the north, this of course leaves, all of the rest of China virtually undefended, and there are a lot of people that still don't like him, right? And thus ended the Han Dynasty. Well, so see, he's not in the Han Dynasty. He's the new dynasty, right? Also, right around this time, there is a really, really bad flood. One of the big rivers of China actually changes its course, which is something that happens very, very frequently in the ancient world. And it floods many cities and displaces tens of thousands of people and floods a lot of really, really good farmland. It puts it underwater that is, basically going to spoil crops. This leads to a fairly significant... Indeed. Okay, so, yes, the red eyebrows, they revolt. They paint their eyebrows red. This is how they designate that they are part of the revolt. And there are a lot of them, a very large army of them, into the several thousands of soldiers level revolt. There's also another revolt called the Lulin, which is green trees. This one's a little bit different. This one has peasants, but they also have a selection of old imperial family supporters, and they kind of have a cousin of the old imperial family, and we'll talk about more. We'll talk about that more in just a bit. Actually, let's go ahead and talk about it right now. So the Lulin rebellion is eventually going to spin itself into a full-out dynasty of its own, effectively. So these people have with them a guy named Liu Xuan. I almost spelled it like it's pronounced. X's, when we use them in English to define Chinese words, are pronounced like SH. So this is Li Xuan. This guy is part of the old imperial family. Now, he is not necessarily like the guy that was next in line or anything. So he's kind of peripherally related, but he is part of the Han Dynasty. He was also very young, and he still was pretty young. He was at least a young adult. He wasn't like a child, but he is not really the guy that's in charge. The people that are running the Lulin rebellion are going to put this guy on the throne, and they're going to start saying that they follow the Gengshi Emperor. The Gengshi Emperor. So they say that this is the Han Dynasty that's been restored, and a lot of the people that are in this rebellion are really just sort of using this guy as a puppet so that they can get back at Wang Mang, because of course he killed a lot of their family members and was sort of a jerk when he took over. So this is really just a group of disenfranchised old imperial supporters that find a cousin of the emperor and go, yeah, you're the emperor, now let's go kill this guy. This sounds like it's turning into Roman charioteer races. Red eyebrows, green trees. The white and the blue. But the real question, Figment, is do you know which ones were paired? Which of the pairs went together? The upper and lower houses, which colors went together? That's when you're like uber nerds, and I don't doubt that you know that, by the way, but that's an interesting question. You did know. For those of you that don't know, in the later parts of the Roman Empire, there were actually sports teams, and this maybe gets back to the NFL draft. There were sports teams. So if you went to watch chariot races, there were 4 teams. There were the reds, the whites, the blues, and the greens. And the sort of upper tiers were the reds and the blues, and the lower tiers were the whites and the greens. But the reds and the whites were sort of like upper and lower tier. and then the blues and the greens went together. And there were actually revolts that started as sporting event issues. There's the Nike Rebellion in the later Byzantine Empire, where a big argument that started at the games sort of spilled out into the streets of Constantinople and started a rebellion. So there we go. Yeah. I read a whole book about that when I was in grad school. Fascinating stuff. Some of the people are pretty well known. They made statues to a lot of these people. And you could sort of move up in the ranks. So maybe that's your drafting. There we go. We got it back to the NFL draft. So, anyway, so the Gengshi is going to be the new and the legitimate emperor, but Wang Mang is still going to be pretty much the guy that is to beat. And from the Lulin rebellion and from this court of the Gengshi, you're going to have a guy that is actually quite capable. And this guy's name is Liu Xiu. We want to read that book now. I don't remember the title of it. I could probably go dig it back up. I have the book list of all of the books that I read when I was in grad school somewhere. I will make... Honeycomb, if you are honestly interested, hop over on the Discord and in the stream chat, or that's an L, you dum-dum. That's supposed to be an exclamation mark. Shane can't type. Just throw something in the stream chat or shoot me a message and remind me to get that book to you, because I found that my memory during the stream does not carry over to after the stream sometimes, and I say, oh yeah, I'll do that, and then I don't actually do that. So pre-apologies to anybody that I have done that to. I don't mean to. Am I down again? Am I down again? I don't think that I'm down again. Okay. Yeah, it didn't start flashing little red square at me. Hey, DJ, welcome. Anyway, so inside the Gengshi Empire, this guy Liu Xiu is actually a competent guy. And he was originally sort of maybe considered as the figurehead of Gengshi, but just to be honest, he was too competent. And the leaders of the Lulin Rebellion were like, that guy would be way too hard to control. So we're going to put this other guy in charge. And Liu Xiu was like, fine, whatever. As long as we get rid of Wang Mang, we'll be okay. So Liu Xiu is going to take over the military of the Gengshi Emperor. And he is going to decide somewhat unilaterally on how to operate the army. And this is actually a really good thing for the Gengshi Emperor, because as it turns out, Liu Xiu is rather competent and incredibly intelligent. And he is going to corner Wang Mang's army at this big battle in 23 AD called the Battle of Kunyang. And this is a really, really big battle where Wang Mang's sort of combined forces are going to run into the forces of Liu Xiu, and Liu is going to break out a lot of really brilliant tactics, especially tactics with horseback soldiers, and manages to not only win the day, but also capture a large portion of Wang Mang's army. 2380? 23 AD. Like this. Like Michael Jordan's basketball number. Oh, you're just being a jerk. Okay. I appreciate that, by the way. Liu Xiu, 2380, coming to a theater near you. That's like the sci-fi version of that, directed by Denis Villeneuve. Just hop in the TARDIS. Hey, Yverne, welcome. So, anyway, Liu Xiu defeats them. CE, AD, BP, call it whatever you would like, Foggage. Common Era, yeah. So this is the first century past the change of the dime. So the year 23. And we're moving up in years. Hey, Fid. Helping your stepson do a forensics lab for school. Forensics like speech and debate, or forensics like dead bodies? Because there's a big difference. But welcome. So Liu Shu defeats the army of the Shin. Wang Mang flees to the capital of Chang'an, which was the sort of the big capital city of China at the time, and the forces of Liu Shu are going to move in, catch him, and kill him. So that is the end of Wang Mang. And you might think at this point Liu Xuan becomes the official Han Dynasty emperor, right? So Gengshi now becomes the legitimate emperor of everything. But there's still those pesky red eyebrows running around. And I have a map that I should have been showing you. And I also have a picture of Chang'an that I realized that I should have shown you. So, map time. Map. So if we're looking at the territory, note here we have the Xiongnu. Here we have all of that western territory that has been lost to a invading group called the Qiang. And we have the Lulin, the Green Forests down here, which becomes the figurehead dynasty of the Gengshi Emperor. But here we have all these pesky red eyebrows. And this is going to be lots of fighting. Lots of feisting. And you can see here all of the fun little battles and such. But we're not going to go through every single one of those, even though they are pretty interesting and I like tactics. But anyway, this is a picture of Chang'an from a long time ago. This is a particular tower in Chang'an. This particular image is about probably 1700, 1800 years old. But this is what one of the big imperial towers of the capital city looked like. Pretty cool stuff. You can still go see some of these buildings, but most of them have either been renovated or have fallen into disrepair because this is 2,000 years ago, right? Okay, so I apologize for forgetting about the photos. I do this all the time, especially when the stream's dropping and I lose my train of thought. So what's up with the red eyebrows, the Chime? What are we going to do with those people? Some people would say squirt them with a water hose, and then their eyebrows would run down into their eyes, and all of the paint would get in there, and then you'd be able to just take them out while they were distracted. Attack them during the rain. This would be strategic as well because of the drips. Or you could just marshal your army and go after these people. Which is what happens. Liu Xuan, the Gengshi Emperor, is, again, he's mostly incompetent. He's being controlled by a lot of these big families. And Liu Shu is pretty much going to decide that he's going to run the army, and he's sort of, well, I don't know, can you go AWOL if you're actually bringing the entire army with you? That's a fair question. Anyway, he starts running the military completely on his own. He does not really pay attention to any of the mandates that come from his family or from these nobles that are more or less pulling the strings of the Gengshi Emperor. Leave out food that leads to cages dropping from trees. Gets them every time. So he's really the only one that's getting anything done. Liu Xiu is, not Liu Xuan. That guy's, again, sort of just there. He went rogue. Indeed, he went rogue. But this is going to be rather beneficial because when he's going rogue, one of the things that he's targeting are those pesky red eyebrows, the Chime. And it turns out that the Chime had been planning a sneak attack on the capital city. And they attacked the capital city of Chang'an. And it turns out that a lot of these nobles that were supposedly allied with the Gengshi Emperor decide, we would rather not fight an army of 10,000 angry peasants. We're going to flip, and we're going to give the Gengshi Emperor to these guys. And they sort of open the gates and let the peasants in, and the Red Eyebrows are storming the castle, and Liu Xuan's like, I gotta go! And yeah, he doesn't make it out. He gets caught, and they strangle him to death, which is not a good way to go. So, what do you do at that point? Well, now you need somebody else to be emperor, right? Because you've got to have your figurehead. And it turns out that along the way, those old Red Eyebrows had found their own cousin of the old royal family. And this guy's name is, well, wait, where am I? Just die, I guess. I'm not a warrior. Liu Penzi. So the Red Eyebrows go, okay, you, Liu Penzi, are now our emperor. And this guy's like, okay, what do I need to do? And they're like, just do what we tell you. And he's like, okay, you strangled the last guy, so I'm going to do what you tell me to do. And it's at this point that Liu Xiu is like, no, if anybody's the real emperor, it's me. And people are like, well, then why don't you just declare yourself emperor? And he's like, yeah, let's do that. I'm emperor now. So Liu Xiu, oh, come on. I know that you think that's weird, but that's actually his name. All these relatives. Just pull one from your bottomless bag of relatives. Like, we found a cousin. Liu Xiu declares himself emperor. And he takes the throne named Guangwu. All these relatives, nepotism? Yeah, pretty much. No one ever threw a sword at him from a pond. Farcical aquatic ceremonies. So Liu Xiu takes the throne named Guangwu, and he declares that, in fact, he is the restorer of the Han Dynasty. And this is, by the way, is in the year 25. So Guangwu, as I will now call him, we all know that he's Liu Xiu, but his throne name is Guangwu, or his ruling name is Guangwu. So he's going to deal with these Red Eyebrow folks. But here's the thing about Guangwu. He's a smart dude. He's very tactical thinking, and he understands that the core of this rebellion was really not against the Han Dynasty. It was really against Wang Mang, who has now, been killed. I declare myself emperor, restorer of the Han Dynasty. Does anyone care 2,000 years later? Surely not, because we're talking about him, and he's legitimate in our eyes because he made himself legitimate. I guess, if one can legitimize oneself. So here's the thing. He knows that these peasants were mostly rebelling because of the lack of food, the mismanagement, the horribleness stuff. Hurts an historian. Right? Oh, man. People will remember me for 2,000 years. Some people will, and one day a pasty white guy will get on this intermediate platform called Twitch where people can do all sorts of things, and he'll talk about me and make bad jokes about, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Self-authenticating. I care. Right? So, here's the thing. He moves his army off towards Chang'an, and the Red Eyebrows are like, oh crap, this is the big dude. We need to run away because we can't really fight this guy. We need to get back to our position of strength. We need to get back to our actual center of our rebellion. And we'll bring this emperor with us. We'll bring Liu Penzi with us, and he'll be our emperor. And we're still claiming that he's emperor, but we also need to run away. And instead of directly attacking them, what Guangwu starts doing is cutting off their supply lines. And he'll get to the flanks of them and behind them, and he'll basically just stop them from being able to collect any sort of reinforcements, or he also really cuts down on their supply of food. And instead of meeting them head on in this big battle, or completely surrounding them and having this big battle where he crushes them, he sort of just sends out skirmishers to just keep them constantly harassed. He's not really trying to kill all of them, he's just trying to exhaust them. And when he finally gets all of the Red Eyebrows completely exhausted, the Red Eyebrows surrender. And they're really worried that he's going to just kill all of them. But he's like, no, dudes, I understand. Like, do you surrender? They're like, yes, we totally surrender. He's like, are you guys going to be problems anymore? And they're like, no, we just want some food, and we want jobs, and we want stability back. And he's like, okay, cool. Here's the thing. You're all pardoned. Like, all of you that surrendered, you're all pardoned. And Liu Pinzi was like, are you going to strangle me? And he's like, no, dude, you're pardoned too. You're not emperor, but you're pardoned too. And Liu Pinzi was like, hey, that's actually kind of a good deal. Can I come back and hang out with you in the castle? He's like, we'll see about that. And he gets a pension, basically, and he gets to sort of live out his life in somewhat relative ease, but he's not going to get to be emperor anymore. And a lot of people are like, dude, why didn't you kill them all? Like, why didn't you just, like, squish them? And he's like, what? Why would I squish them? Like, they're just hungry people. They weren't angry with me. They were just mad at the situation, and they were trying to preserve their way of life. And Wang Mang was a jerk. And to be fair, so was that Liu Xuan guy, who I didn't really like to begin with. But, you know, it is what it is, and now he's gone. So I'm emperor, and I can do whatever I want to. And there were a lot of people that didn't really like the way that he was running things. So there were a lot of other sort of regional little rebellions where some smaller warlords were just like, no, I'm not going to line up. I'm just going to do my own thing. And he's like, do I have to come get you? And they're like, well, I guess so. And even when trying to bring these rebellious territories back in line, he always tries to offer the people a peaceful way out. This is a random question, but are the soldiers fighting in these wars professional, or are they peasants forced to fight? So the Chinese did not have a professional army at this point. Everybody that is fighting on both sides of this are people that have either been drafted into military service for the sake of Guangwu's side, or had rebelled and formed a military on the side of the Qimei. Now, they had collected some generals and attracted some leaders and stuff that were sort of running the rebellion. But the vast majority of the Red Eyebrows were just peasant people trying to fight for a better way of life. And at this point, they're not going to be any sort of professional sort of soldiers at all. But that's not a bad question at all. That's actually quite a good question. Here, Red Eyebrows, have a Snickers. Yeah, you're not really yourself when you're hungry. So he's very generous with the pardons. He tries to end things peacefully when he's consolidating China as much as he can. He's going to end up going up to Korea because one of the three kingdoms of Korea, the Goguryeo, had taken the chaos in China as an opportunity to expand into what used to be Chinese territory. And Guangwu's like, oh, no, Koreans, you don't get Chinese territory. I would like all that back. And in the year 30, Guangwu had reunited all of the territory that Han Dynasty used to control, except for this stuff out here in the west. That was still in the hands of another group of people. So, I have a picture of this guy, and I should show you who Guangwu is. That's Chang'an again. Guangwu is this guy. Clearly the handsome gentleman here in the center. This is Guangwu. The Emperor. This weird neckbeard looking thing is slightly disturbing he's got going on here. Yeah. Anyway, so China's back. It's reunified mostly. Things are going mostly okay. And it's time to try to fix a lot of the problems that Guangwu thought were plaguing China. Big ones. Number one, we're not going to put generals in the government anymore. This is something that the Han Dynasty had done pretty frequently in previous periods, and it turns out that putting a general in the government gives one person too much power. So what he's going to do to keep the generals happy is that he's going to very frequently have councils with them where he listens to their opinions, and for all ancient purposes and primary sources, it does appear that this guy actually did really take the counsel of his generals pretty highly in regard. He's also going to basically pass along a lot of the loot. So anytime they go fight some big battle, if they conquer anything or take over anything, he's going to share the proceeds with his generals. This is how he's going to keep them on his side. And this actually seems to work really, really well. He also decides that the government of China was just spending too much money. So he's going to cut back on the imperial spending. He's going to live much more simply than any of his predecessors. He is going to start watching the checkbook a little bit, not trying to be super, above and beyond kind of things. No gigantic. Well, I mean, let's be fair. He's still the emperor, and he's still going to have some pretty big parties. But it's not going to be like, party every night, all night long kind of thing. He's also going to cut back a lot of laws. And this might seem sort of weird, but he's actually going to basically cut down on the things, the number of things that were illegal. A lot of the laws that had existed for a few decades in China, according to him, were oppressive, and it didn't let people do things that he felt like they should be able to do. So he just got rid of a lot of laws. And it turns out that this sort of makes a lot of people happy. Like, hey, this guy actually seems to care about people. And again, based on a lot of these sources, it really does appear that he did. And he and the next two rulers are going to be sort of what I would refer to as the height of the Han Dynasty. Now, at this time, they stopped being referred to as just the Han Dynasty, and we do refer to them as the Eastern Han Dynasty because, again, they had lost most of the territory out in the west at this point. But Guangwu and his son and his grandson are all going to be incredibly capable leaders and are going to bring a lot of stability to China where it had not been present for the previous probably 40 years or so. An entire generation of turmoil these people are going to remedy and fix. Now, this doesn't mean that everything is perfectly peaceful and happy in his world, and there are actually people that don't really like his presence, especially some of these people around the border regions that he had sort of reconsolidated back into the empire, including a couple of sisters from Vietnam. These are the Trung sisters, and this is where we get everybody's favorite. Oh, and Vern's not here to see this, but the elephants. These are the Trung sisters from Vietnam. Their names are Trung Trắc and Trung Nhi. And they are going to take an opportunity to rebel against the overlorddom of the Han Dynasty. And they're going to set themselves up a kingdom basically in the northern part of modern-day Vietnam and the very southern part of China. And this is in 40, and their rebellion is actually fairly well received by some of the people down in that area because, how do I spell their names? Nope, wrong one. Their names are Trung Trắc and Trung Nhi. Yep, I know. You don't like this at all because you are so Western oriented and you don't know any words from any other languages. Elephants get stuff done. Yeah, they do. And they draw a lot of the southern commanderies into their rebellion. And, well, Guangwu is, I mean, he's a nice dude, but he doesn't really broke with this rebellion very much. And so he picks a general and says, I'm going to give you a really big honking army and you need to go down and deal with this rebellion. And it's unsure exactly what the tone of that was. Like, you need to go deal with these people, or you need to go deal with this. You know, like, one way implies go massacre them all, and one way implies just go down there, see if you can talk with them, carry out my policies that I've been establishing here. Whatever he actually meant, the general that he sent down to fight the rebellion had an army of 32,000 soldiers and surrounded, killed these people, and then chopped their heads off and sent them back to Guangwu as a present. And that didn't seem to really sit very well with him. He's like, what? I mean, thanks, I guess, but this isn't what I asked for. I didn't register for, rebel heads. I registered for the coffee machine and the nice towels. I don't know why you got me this. I mean, I appreciate the sentiment, but did you keep the receipt? Is there any way we could, yeah. Vern, did you see the elephants? I gotta show the elephants again. Well, that's the break screen. Here we go. These are the Trung sisters who are leading the rebellion from Elephant Back. I just wanted to make sure that Vern saw these. Vern, of course, whose spirit animal is an elephant. I don't know if that's true or not, but Vern always appreciated the elephants in previous streams. So, yep, this isn't the team building activity I asked for. Break screen for break dancing. Yes, it's an unknown thing, but when I put the break screen up, I do break dance. And because you can't see what's going on, you'll never actually know if that's true or not. Hey, Risudegu, welcome. Elephants break screen, pretty close. How are you, Risudegu? Good to see you. Oh, we need to get rid of Lu Pianzi because he's not actually running things anymore. Running things. Dragonfly. Oh, cool. My mother-in-law, my wife's mother, is a big fan of the dragonflies and has a lot of jewelry and decorations that are dragonfly related. So there's still this threat up here. Those Xiongnu people, I can't spell. I was trying to type and talk at the same time, and everybody knows I can't do that. The Xiongnu are still a threat. And for the majority of the 40s, the Xiongnu are not really invading, but they're being pests. They're popping up, they are disrupting trade, they are doing small-scale raids, just sort of like run down, hit some stuff, grab a bunch of stuff, and then run back away. And this had actually begun to have some fairly serious effects on the population of northern China because nobody wanted to live up there. This is people moving away from unsafe neighborhoods, but ancient world style, right? One of the things that I always say is that ancient people are just like us. They don't want to live in a place that's got constant threat of violence, right? Ninjing about. Now, don't you go ninjing nothing that don't need ninjing. So, the Xiongnu are a problem, and the north had become somewhat depopulated, and Guangwu needs to figure out a way to solve this issue. But again, he's not super big on the whole, I'm going to go up there and kill all of you. That's not really his style. So he starts sort of sending ambassadors up into the Xiongnu, and he finds out that there are actually some fairly significant divisions inside the Xiongnu. They're not all oriented in the same direction. There are intra-clan problems up there. There are a few different groups of individuals that are more powerful than others. And he figures out that if he could properly apply some political pressure, he might be able to split them. And what he does is through some pretty brilliant negotiating and a little bit of military activity, he manages to drive a wedge between these two big factions of the Xiongnu. And by recognizing a particular tribe as Chanyu, the leader of the Xiongnu, he's able to create a buffer kingdom of Xiongnu that are in alliance with him. So instead of going up with his army and trying to kill all of these people up here, he splits their territory in half, and by supporting the side that, was sort of rising up, he creates a new country and then makes an alliance with that country. So now they're his own buffer. So if the bad Xiongnu want to try to invade through China, now they have to go through the territory of the other Xiongnu. And they're not going to let them do that, because these people are going to get super great treatment. For example, he's going to say, like, you get to send your kids down to hang out in the capital city. You get preferential treatment when it comes to trade. You guys get to come to all the cool big festivals down here if you want. So by giving them recognition, he creates an ally that is both shield and respite. It's a brilliant political maneuver, and this is going to last for decades. And this effectively ends the threat of the Xiongnu in the north for, again, decades. But, you can't live forever. And his son, whose birth name is Liu Yang, is going to take over in 57. Oh, by the way, the last decade of Guangwu's rule, basically unbroken peace. And maybe your kids get to come home, right? Well, I mean, they weren't hostages. Xiongnu 2 buffer zone. I appreciate that. How would Syria, Russia, and modern day compare to buffer states? If you're familiar with how World War I ended, or how World War II ended, where the country of Poland was basically constituted to sit between Germany and Russia, that is a buffer state. And that was very clearly and directly done to keep Germany and Russia from sharing a border with each other because they could not get along. There aren't really too many other examples of that in modern day. It has proven to be very tumultuous to try to create buffer states like that. There might be some examples. Oh yeah, I guess the reason South Korea doesn't control the entire Korean peninsula is because during the Korean War, especially about 1951 to 52, Mao Zedong in China made a very conscious decision that he did not want a direct ally of the United States to have a border with China. He was also trying to create a subservient Korean Communist Party, which is why China got directly involved in the war in Vietnam and why North Korea managed to take back half the peninsula in the ceasefire. So if you can't get along, I'm going to have to separate you. So North Korea today is to a certain extent a buffer state like this. And ironically, or maybe not, it's actually China that is one of the main reasons that it exists. Anyway, so Guangwu dies in 57. His son, Liu Yang, that should be with a G, not Yan, is going to take the throne, and his throne name is Emperor Ming, which brings us to the Ming of Wishful Thinking, which I think is a great title. And it works on so many levels, because this guy is the ultimate optimist. So when Emperor Ming takes over, he is very astute. He's very capable. He's very humble. One of the things that we have in the ancient sources are these records of him having these big religious ceremonies where he will actually sort of serve as intermediary for his own generals, which is seen as sort of a very almost humiliating position, but he does so willingly to show that he and his generals are not as far apart as they seem. Korea is the air filter for Japan, and Japan is the tsunami shield for Korea. Oh, alas. You've been rewatching MASH recently. These references are relevant. Is he merciful like his dad? He is. He is merciful like his dad. He plays politics really well. For the first probably 2 decades of his, well, he doesn't have 2 full decades. For the vast majority of his rule, there is pure peace inside China, except for all of the people that wish him ill, which is so weird. It turns out that there is such a thing maybe as too nice. And a lot of people sort of thought that maybe this guy was just full of junk and maybe he was a suck-up. He wasn't. By all accounts, this guy seems to be pretty nice and just a really decent guy. But he keeps getting cursed by warlocks. And you're like, what the devil? And Figment just went, cursed? Yeah. So apparently, there was this one individual that was part of one of these old people that had been sort of put aside in the old Lulin Rebellion. Don't talk to me or my historical friend again. So this guy planned to kill Emperor Ming. Hey, Bloss, welcome. Welcome. Everybody should go to the Discord and check out the tiger that Blaz is painting, because it's legit. I got you, friend. I'll break those curses. So, this guy tries to kill Emperor Ming and sets up this assassination plot, but it's a pretty bad plot, and Ming and his people catch the plot way before it actually gets close to actually killing him. And he just gives him a pardon. He's like, look, man, just go back home. I don't know why you're so mad. Just go back home and do your thing. So the guy gets back home after being, basically let go by the emperor, and he hires a warlock. No, this is actually the Han Dynasty. I should probably put that. This is Eastern Han Dynasty. This is Emperor Ming. If you're going to try to murderate someone, at least put a decent effort in. I would encourage people not to try to murderate people. Murder is just bad. Han is before Ming. Yes, significantly before. Ming Dynasty is not until much, much later, over 1,000 years later. Yeah, don't do that. You mad, bro? Yeah, exactly. Like, why are you mad? So this dude hires a warlock to curse the emperor. And so the emperor finds out about this, and he's like, look, man, now you've gone and done something that I can't just turn my back on, because again, these people are fairly superstitious. This is not in the BC. We have crossed over. He rules from 57 to 75. So we are now moving in the up position instead of in the down position. Oh yeah. This is the first episode of the AD phase. We are in phase 6 now. Phasers set to 6. Yep. So the murder he could excuse. The black magic, that's just too much. And you might think, okay, so he's going to capture this guy and put him on public trial and then have him very sorely publicly executed. But he doesn't even do that. He's like, look, dude, that's just too much. Enough with the black magic. And he goes, I'm not going to put you on public trial. I'm not going to torture you. I'm not going to publicly execute you. You just go kill yourself. Just go kill yourself. And so this guy has to go kill himself. Yeah, like, why you gotta be like that? Why you gotta be like that? Keep thinking of Flash Gordon, but topsy-turvy. Pretty much. So that's not all of the warlock things, though. And apparently, out in the far western parts, there were some other people that were trying to basically use black magic to weaken the Han Dynasty so that they could take over. And they were building or constructing all of these big animal shapes. And they were using these black magic spells to sort of imbue these animals that they had created with spirits that were supposed to help them fight better and protect their armies. And they were going to direct all of this stuff against the Emperor. And he's just like, what is it with the black magic? What's up with the freaking warlocks? And so all of those people are pretty much just rounded up, and then they have to go kill themselves. And then he sort of just goes like, look, no more black magic. Just the black magic stuff was bad enough as it is. You're not supposed to be playing around with the bad spirits. Just leave the bad spirits alone. Enough with the cursing. No more black magic. If you do black magic, you're going to get killed. And I'm going to bring the law against you. I'm sick and tired of being cursed. He could have publicly taken the head. Instead, it was like, no, I'm going to go drink some tainted wine. Because magic is fun. Yeah, but the black magic is evil. It's evil. It's not even the Diet Coke of evil. It's just actually evil. So there is a little bit of business that goes on right at the tail end of his reign, where the northern Xiongnu start harassing the southern Xiongnu. So the southern Xiongnu are the ones that are allied with China. And their country pretty much sits right about here. But then there was the northern Xiongnu up here that were causing trouble and trying to invade down into the south. So Ming hears that the Xiongnu were causing trouble, and he's like, okay, we need to go handle these guys. We need to go handle these people, and they're threatening our allies, and we want to keep the allies that my father made. So he sends a big army up, and he pretty clearly says, look, we're not trying to kill all of the northern Xiongnu. What we're really trying to do is just scatter them off and make them understand that we are, in fact, going to protect our allies. So there's some fighting that goes on up there around 73, and he does, in fact, get his generals to scatter out the northern Xiongnu, and shows that he does, in fact, mean business, and that the southern Xiongnu were, in fact, his friends and under his protection. And then he decides to do something a bit interesting. Now, under Wang Mang, all of this western territory had been lost. And Ming decides that it might be the right time to sort of bring these people back into the fold. And yeah, so he does. And there's a little bit of politics here, but there's also a little bit of fighting. But he decides to go west, which is the deeper level pun of the Ming of Wishful Thinking. And I don't think anybody got that, because I don't even know if people knew who sang the song Ming of Wishful Thinking. But it was by the band Go West, which is why this was such a perfect title. And by the way, the song is King of Wishful Thinking, which I know that you all have heard, but you probably don't remember that you've heard. What up, Tuna? Good to see you, my friend. Welcome. Why haven't we heard more about this coup attempt by black magic before? Seriously. Got to learn more about these magics. You're less familiar with it, and your brain and heart don't like that realization. Indeed, go west. Yeah, so he decides to go west because he is the king of wishful thinking, or the Ming of wishful thinking. But anyway, he reconquers the west, bum, bada, bum, and he reestablishes the western territories. And this is a pretty big deal. Oh, I didn't even show you his picture. Here we go. Boop. You have excerpts from the history of the world, I guess. Oh, man. I don't... Anyway. I have opinions about that video. Anyway, so this is Emperor Ming, and here is his territory. So, Eastern Han, and he is adding all of this stuff back to the Empire. Which is a good thing, because this is going to reestablish the basically the connection that China had with the Silk Road. And this is going to be pretty important for China, because this is going to bring into China both a lot of money, but also a lot of influence. Because it is during Emperor Ming's time that Buddhism first makes its way into China. And I'm missing chat. Isn't Go West by the Pet Shop Boys, though? Hey, Joey, welcome. I do too, but from the north to the north. Yeah. I have opinions. Anyway, Buddhism gets into China during this period. Once China reestablishes its connection with Central Asia, Buddhism, which had been making its way through Central Asia up from India, so up this way, and then up into Central Asia here, into the region which is today all the countries named Stan, and then over here into the Tarim Basin, where, boom, they now hit China. And so here comes Buddhism into China. And this is, of course, going to have an enormous impact. If you saw the stream about Buddhism, you will know that one of the biggest modern branches of Buddhism is called Mahayana Buddhism, and it is going to more or less get its developing strides inside China. But also, you get really cool things like this. Bum, bada, bum. This is the White Horse Temple, and this is the site of the very first Buddhist temple in China. Now, the shrine that we're looking at today in this photograph is not the original shrine. The original shrine was much more simple. This one dates to about the 1600s, but it's still in the exact same location, and you can sit here, I guess, on the little white horse statue and get your photo taken, though I'm not certain you're supposed to technically be on that statue. But, you know, I can't say very much. I climb over fences and get on rock things that I'm not supposed to all the time. Anyway, white horse, red eyebrows, green trees. But more importantly, Shaolin, thus Kung Fu movies. I guess so. I guess this is the first step towards having Kung Fu movies, and thus Bruce Lee. So, hey. And thus Mortal Kombat, you know, because Enter the Dragon and Mortal Kombat was basically just a ripoff of Enter the Dragon. So, anyway, all sorts of fun things. Another thing that Ming does is set up... kind of weird to hear China pronounced correctly now after 4 years of China. They're the problem. You know, the problem is China. They're ripping off all of our stuff. They're stealing all of our things. I don't like them. They're the bad guys. It's easy to win trade wars with China. Like this thing. This is one of the old lecture halls from what becomes the oldest university in China, which is founded under Emperor Ming. Frosted Lucky Han, it's magically delicious. But is China the correct pronunciation? That's a fair question. Is that what they call themselves in their language? And the answer is no. Anyway, so Emperor Ming, pretty cool guy, does his thing, lives his life, and ends up dying, because that's what happens when you get old. And his son, Emperor Zheng, is going to take over. Zheng. Emperor they call Zheng, who rules from 75 to 88. I could not for the life of me find a photo of this guy, and I don't know why I could not find a photo of him when all of the other emperors are so easily acquired. Zheng is going to be the last one of the really good Han emperors. And under his rule, China, under the Han Empire, is really going to sort of hit its apex. After Zheng, everything else sort of starts going downhill. So Zhang is much the same as his father and his grandfather. He's very wise. He's very humble. He gets really, really deep into Confucianism, but the idea here is that he's not really doing it to just be sort of petty or suck up to the people. It seems like he's actually really interested in it. Spends some money rebuilding Confucius shrines, patronizes a lot of art. What was money back then? They had coins that were made out of precious metals. So they did not have paper money. The first country to really use paper money was the Song Dynasty of China, and that's not until about 1,000 years past where we are. Song Dynasty is probably the smartest civilization that's ever existed on the face of the earth contemporaneously. These people were brilliant folks. That's the Chinese Renaissance, by the way. And if you'll note, 1000 AD is several hundred years before the European Renaissance, and we'll get to that. Asking for a time-traveling friend. China is what Westerners call it because of the Qin dynasty. Yes, Shi Huangdi at the time. So Qin comes from the Qin dynasty, which was set up by a guy named Shi Huangdi, and he was the first emperor of China. The first guy that put it together. That was after the collapse of the Zhou dynasty and the Warring States period. So, yeah. Qin dynasty. That's back in the well, technically it's the early 200. Well, it's in the 3rd century BC. I'll just say it that way. Early 3rd century BC. So, Zhang, what is he going to do? Well, again, he gets really into Confucianism. He gets really big on living simply and humbly. He reduces taxes. When's the last time you've heard of a leader actually cutting taxes? And I'm not talking about cutting taxes for your crony friends or big corporations. I mean, like, he cuts taxes across the board because he cuts spending. Again, live piously and within your means. That's one of the things that Confucianism teaches. And he says, China's spending too much money. We need to cut back. However, the problems that exist after Zhang are going to be from the family of his wife. He's got your vote. Did we spot the t-shirt connection this time? Empire Strikes Back? Empire Strikes West? Or just Han Dynasty and Han being Star Wars? There you go. So there's the shirt Easter egg of the night. There's not always one of those, by the way, but sometimes there are shirt Easter eggs. Honeycomb System gets the gold star for tonight. Qin, is that also the origin of the root of Sino? No. I don't think so. Sino is one of those old Latin holdovers. Are we voting for Emperor? No, the Emperor dissolves the Senate. I did not volunteer for tribute. I'm a giant nerd, and that's okay, right? I mean, I embrace who I am. I don't try to run away from it. I know that it's hot in here under all of these lights. I've got lights right up in my face here, and it's sort of starting to make me glisten. Hey, Kyle, welcome. Yeah, I have heard a lot of people saying that the Twitch notification thing is pretty busted. Which is why I've taken to posting on Discord and adding everybody. So it's getting hot in here. Yeah, let's not even continue that line of thinking because nobody wants to see that. So Zhang's wife is from a clan called the Dao. And this is going to cause trouble. Zhang's mother was from a clan called the Ma. So he was half Ma. The Ma clan actually was one of the generals of his grandfather. There's a whole connection family there. I could, yeah. We don't have to get into all the nitpicky things. Basically, though, the way that it worked, or the way that it had worked for basically all of previous China, was that the mother clan of the emperor sort of had prominence. So the mother clan of Zhang was the Ma clan. And Jang is going to marry a very strong-hearted woman whose mother is also very strong-hearted, and this is going to set up a rivalry because the Dao clan was not supposed to be sort of in the second seat. They weren't supposed to be riding shotgun. The Ma clan was supposed to be riding shotgun. But this is going to make a bit of a mess. And Jang is actually going to die rather young. He dies at 32. And his son, whose name was Liu Jiao, is going to take over. And this is where things get really tricky. So the Dao clan is going to force the Ma clan out. And then the Dao clan is going to hang on to power with a lie. And let me explain to you what happens here. So, the emperor who takes the throne named He, do we know what he died of at 32? He got sick. It doesn't appear that he was murdered, or there is no suspect of any sort of foul play here. Unfortunately, the ancient world is very unforgiving, and people died young all the time. Yeah, I could have also been because the stream has bounced multiple times, and it's been like up and down and up and down and up and down. A little bit of hunt. Yeah. So here's the thing. Jang's wife claims that the emperor, or the new emperor, Emperor He, is her son. And because of a lot of intra-court politics, some of this stuff was real shady, and you could sometimes get away with claiming kids that weren't yours because of the way that the harem situation worked. And because all of these emperors, by the way, had multiple consorts and concubines. You had a wife, and then you had pretty much whatever else on the side. And Emperor He is not from the Dao clan. He was from one of his father's... his mother was one of his father's concubines. But the Dao clan, being sort of dead set on power, lie and say that they are his family. And so then they are going to basically be in this position to run this kid as a regency because he's a child. His father died when he was 32. He's a little kid. He can't run the throne by himself. And he's got this woman claiming to be his mother who is not actually his mother. Has there been any more confirmation that the first clock was built to time out the emperors? I have heard that rumor before. I don't think that there is any way to confirm that, Tuna. I am fairly certain that is just a tall tale. But we don't actually get clocks for... Well, I guess it depends on what you call a clock. Yeah, this is totally very operatic here. So the Dao clan is going to sort of take over as leader of the Eastern Han here. And Emperor He, being a child, doesn't really have very much say-so over this. So the person that sort of runs the show is this guy's uncle, who's not actually his uncle. This guy's name is Dao Xian. And Dao Xian is going to be very braggadocio. He's going to get up in a lot of people's face. He's going to use the power that his sister has as regent to basically run and do whatever he wants to. Hey, Adventure Inn, welcome. You heard it on the History Channel, so remember it with a great assault. Exactly. Welcome, Ren. We need to do the shout-outs and do all the shout-outs, right? I haven't done shout-outs tonight. I need to do the shout-outs. Lots of friends that do the streaming. Everybody should go follow Adventure Ren. If you like chatting about interesting topics, including but not limited to things like botany, you should go check out Adventure Ren. Are you still doing your botany book club, Adventure Ren? I know that you were doing that. I think it was on Mondays, or was it Mondays or Tuesdays? I can't remember. Every Monday. There we go. We also have Big Tuna at the Big Tuna. Yep. There we go. At Big Tuna Neil. Everybody go follow Neil. Watch him do some art or occasionally play a game every now and then. And we've got Mythic. We got DJ. Everybody go check out Mythic Acrylic, who does some lovely painting. A little bit abstract, but very pretty stuff. So go check out the Mythic Acrylic. And if you've been around any time lately, you know that the DJ Cognac is in here. So go give the DJ a follow. And we'll hang out and do some stuff. And chat. And watch some games. Who else am I missing? Anybody else in here that I'm missing? If I'm missing you, and you do the stream thing, speak now, and I shall shout thy out. Anyway, Dao Xian. Not really related to the Emperor. Not really interested in doing anything except for what he wants to. But very interested in running around and claiming that he's the uncle of the Emperor and trying to get people to do stuff for him and do favors for him. And it turns out that word starts to kind of spread around that it might not actually be the Dao clan that's really in charge. Oh, there's Kelly. Go follow the Kelly Howlett stream. And after the craziness of this year calms down, Kelly will get back to doing her delightful art stream, and we'll be able to hang out. Yes, we can totally vent about this school year. So there is a bit of scuttlebutt floating around in the upper levels of the court and into some of the higher clans that the Dao clan might not actually be the legitimate regents. Might not be the legitimate regents. And this starts causing some trouble, because if you're not the legitimate regent, do people have to tell you, or do people have to listen to what you're saying? Do people have to do what you're telling them to do? And Dao Xian gets really upset with this guy from a rival clan and just decides, I can do whatever I want to, and kills the guy. And this causes trouble, because the guy that he killed was real high up there in one of the really big clans, and his sister, who is of course playing regent, gets real mad at him and is like, look, I've got to put you in jail. Like, I can't get you out of this. I have no idea what you're doing. You've got to go to jail. So Dao Xian gets stuck in jail, and he's not happy, because he thought that he was basically untouchable, right? So he goes, here's the deal. And he sends word to his sister, and he's like, I've got a deal for you. You need to come talk to me. And they're like, okay, what's this deal? And he goes, I want to get out of prison. I don't like being in prison. This sucks. I have a thought that if you gave me an army and you gave me command, I would take my army up into the territory of the northern Xiongnu, and I could conquer them. And his sister's like, if you lose, they're probably going to kill you, which would get rid of you as a problem for me. Or if you won, I'm going to say that my not son emperor came up with the idea, and that would make me stronger. So it's a win-win for me. Yeah, sure, here's your army. You go fight those Xiongnu. So in 91, Dao Xian takes his army up into the territory of the northern Xiongnu, and he beats the devil out of them. He utterly destroys their base of power. He burns their cities. He destroys their army. He wrecks them, like from the ground up. Yeah, cost-benefit analysis. Like, I'm going to win either way on this. But nobody really expects this. He just floors them. And then he gets to come home as a hero. And he swaggers in like a boss, right? And he's basically in the position now that he's thinking he could just push this little kid, who's only about 14 at this point, out of the throne and just take over himself. He's the man. He's untouchable. He ended the Xiongnu. Like, the Southern Kingdom is still existing, but they're his allies, so they don't really count. But the bad guy Xiongnu, they're gone. And then the Emperor finds out that he's not actually related to the Dao clan. And it gets proven to him that he's not actually related to the Dao clan. And as you might expect, this makes him a bit upset. So, what's he gonna do? And the answer is, what do you expect, a teenage boy who just found out that you're not actually his mom and you've been lying to him for the majority of his life, and his uncle, who is not really his uncle, is actually probably plotting to have him killed, and the entire clan that was basically trying to run the country when you're supposed to be running the country is actually not legitimate in the least. Yeah. What is the teen angst going to do? The teen angst is going to kill them all. And basically all of the supporters of the Dao clan get killed because Emperor He decides, I'm going to run the country now. I don't need a regent anymore. And it's sure as heck not going to be you, because you're not my mother. You are not the mother. Yeah, so all of the Dao supporters just killed. But what about Dao Xian? This great emperor this great general who had won glory for China in his name. He's like, oh, you get to kill yourself. You're still gone. You get to kill yourself. Go kill yourself. So Dao Xian is dead. Not the mama. Not the mama. Exactly. Freaking Maury Povich. Right. So Emperor He takes over as a unified ruler, and after 92, he will rule for the next 12 years. I'm sorry, the next 14 years by himself. But things have changed. And even though Emperor He sort of sets things right, this shows that the Han Empire is not as powerful as it seems from the outset. And when we come back to the Han Dynasty next time in Phase 7, well, things are not going to go so great for the Han Dynasty. We'll just say it that way. But that brings me to the end of my stream for tonight. But that doesn't mean that we have to go anywhere. As always, if you have any questions, I guess I should show you this image of Emperor He. There we go. Emperor He. Boom. Handsome looking devil. Anyway. So, yeah, of course, you gotta end on the cliffhanger, right? You can't give everybody everything. You can't always wrap the story up nice and neatly, right? If I did that, there would be no reason to come back. Except for all the banter. I think the banter is what people enjoy. What's in the news? Yeah, Do you have anything particular, Tuna, that you're after? Like 12 of 10 banter. Any more info on the elections in Israel? Yes. The elections came out basically a wash. And there is not a significant party that has enough to make a majority. So in that situation, there actually is a position in Israel called president. And the president has very few actual real powerful duties. But one of the duties of the president, in the case that that there is not a political party inside of the Israeli Congress that has a majority, the president gets to choose the party leader that gets to make an attempt at creating a coalition. So when the election counts came in and it was pretty clear that nobody had actually won the majority, the president could have chosen any party leader that was running to form a coalition, and he chose Netanyahu. So at the moment, Netanyahu is still in the process of trying to determine whether or not he can put together a ruling coalition that would have 51% of the votes in Congress. He does have a limited amount of time to do that, and his limit is coming up. I don't know if it's next week or the week after, but fairly soon. Netanyahu is going to have to either come up with a power sharing structure where he could form a government, or admit that he cannot form a government. And at that point, the president will have to pick another party leader who could potentially form a ruling government. And what has actually become a bit of a sticking point is that there are majority Muslim parties inside of Israel. Not everybody in Israel is Jewish, and not everybody that is inside of Israel votes for the really conservative Jewish parties. And one of the groups that has been growing in support is a fairly moderate Muslim political party that is potentially, they have enough seats inside of the Congress to sway one way or the other. Like if they joined up with one of these other groups, they could create a coalition. And the real question is, are any of the leaders of the more conservative Jewish parties going to try to reach out to this majority Muslim party to see if they could form a ruling coalition? And I really think this might be a moment where some big and potentially very good things for Israel could happen. But I mean, it's all politics. So we still really don't know what's going to be going on. Netanyahu is still acting prime minister, so he's still technically in charge. But there's also a trial going on against him for embezzlement and some other charges. So depending on how those go, he might not be a free man for much longer. I have not been to Israel. He is under investigation for some corruption charges. Yes, he is. But he's still the head of the single most powerful political party inside of Israel. So he probably stood the best chance of making a ruling coalition, but it's really going to come down to who he can convince to follow his lead. What's up, Viscera? How's it going? Evening's going pretty well. The day itself was rough, but I always enjoy coming and hanging out with my Twitch friends. It always makes me feel better to know that there are bright spots of intelligence and love and peace and happiness and sarcasm and bad jokes and chasing rabbits and trying to poke fun at me. I really appreciate the time that I get to spend hanging out with everybody on stream here. It always makes my day better. It really always does. How are you? Always glad to see you. Yeah, thanks. How's it going in your world? How's it going for everybody else, if I didn't ask already? Anybody else have any channel point redemptions? Anybody want to ask any questions about the material tonight or anything else? Anybody got stuff that they want to chat about? Otherwise, I can go to see who might be a target of a raid. Doing well. Awesome. Good to hear. Ooh, lots of people streaming tonight. Anybody got anything? Anybody? And you don't have to. You can just say, like, okay, I'm done. Where can we learn more about the black magic coup stuff? You'd have to start looking up ancient Chinese primary sources. Let's see. I'm trying to think of exactly who would be the particular historian that would cover that. It's not Sima Quan. Sima Quan dies in the 1st century BC. It's not the Book of Records. That's all stuff from the Zhou Dynasty. Is that Zheng He that wrote that stuff? The problem is that I've read these, but it's been since I was probably in... Oh, gosh. I'm about to make myself feel really, really old here. It's probably been almost 20 years since I've read the primary sources of the Eastern Han. Man, I need to go back and read this junk. I'm trying to, maybe it's Han Fei. I bet it's Han Fei. Let me see if I can look. No, he was dead already. I'll tell you what you can do, Honeycomb, and this sounds like it's a cheat, but it's really not a cheat. If you go to Wikipedia for Emperor Ming, so you might have to search Emperor Ming of Han, or Emperor... Well, I mean, he was the one that had most of the curses put against him. So, like, Emperor Ming of Han, and see what sources they cite. I can't remember exactly which Chinese historian it is, and I know that's probably horrible for me that I can't remember it off the top of my head, but unfortunately, I can't remember every single source that I've ever read. Am I reading any good comic books right now? You have a thought, but it is a big thought and tough to type. Okay. Have a great night, Shane. You're starting stream now. Hey, we could... Well, let me see. I need to make sure that I'm spreading around the raids. Yeah, there's some people that we haven't raided since I've been keeping my raid register. I am rereading Invincible. It's coming along very slowly because I don't have a lot of time to do very much of anything right now. I have Ascender, which I started but I haven't finished, which is really good. What else am I reading? I'm reading Farmhand, which is still coming out, but I'm not recent with it. I'm not recent with anything right now. Like, honestly, right now, I'm not caught up on anything. I'm reading Gideon Falls, but I'm not caught up on it. I'm reading East of West, which finished last year, and I haven't managed to catch up with it. I have not had a lot of time for comics, unfortunately. Come the summer, though, it's going to be time. It's going to be time. Oh, Vern, I appreciate hanging out with you all. I make time to do this. It really is worth it to me to hang out with you all. Rank 3 things, my favorite statues. I have read all of Sweet Tooth, but I read all of that over basically one sitting on the last time I was able to take any time off. My wife and I went to a cabin on a lake for 3 days, and I read all of Sweet Tooth in 3 days. It is pretty good. Favorite statues. The only statue, I'm going to have to put this number one because it is the only statue to ever have actually made me have what I would consider a physical emotional reaction. When I walked into St. Peter's Basilica and saw the Pieta, that made me have all of the feels. So I'm going to have to put that on number one favorite statue. Number two favorite statue. That's an interesting question. I've never really considered this. There is a statue from Greece that I saw when I was in Athens 2 summers ago that is absolutely delightful. It made me laugh. I'll make myself a note to post the photo of that in the stream stuff. I'll just put myself a little note here on my hand. Statue. But the statue is of Venus, and Cupid is flying around over her head in the form of a cherub, and Pan is trying to basically pull her clothes off, but she has a sandal, and she's like trying to beat Pan off of her with this sandal. It's a great statue. That's probably my number two favorite statue because it was so memorable. Well, it's not that it's a hard question. It's just I've never actually sat down and thought about my favorite statues. That sounds like the standard greeting to Pan. So there was a great statue that I shared a few streams ago when I was at Philippi. So you've been to the museum at Philippi, right, Figment? So there's a statue at the museum at the top of the hill at Philippi, and it doesn't have a head. It's sort of it's pretty clearly a woman, but doesn't have a head, and it's missing one of the arms. But at the foot of the woman is her puppy, and it's this little puppy, and it's just in such loving detail, and it's sort of looking up at the lady, and that I always thought was super great because, I mean, these people are like spending gaboodles of money to memorialize their puppy. So that was a great statue. It was a very memorable statue. I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite, but if I'm just coming through memory of statues, that's a pretty cool one. But I shared that one when I was doing the Adventure Time with Shane stream a few weeks ago, and I just shared about 100 pictures. No elephant statues in the top 3, so disappoint. Oh, goodness gracious. I don't know if I've ever seen elephant statues. Well, there actually is an elephant... Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a statue or a work of art, but there's one outside the zoo here in Hattiesburg. So there's that. All right, ladies and gents, we are going to go... and we're going to go do a raid. And we are going to go raid the fabulous and always unpredictable 8 p.m. We have not raided 8 p.m. in quite some time, and for those of you that do not know, we don't know what we're going to be raiding into. 8 p.m. is a force of nature. He does really, really awesome work, but he's also an interesting guy, and I say that with all of the love possible. You should definitely give him a follow. Always entertaining, but we don't know what we're going into. So I'm going to hit this raid button, and we're going to go raid 8 p.m. As always, when we do the raid, our battle cry is adventure. And if you have them, you can throw all those happy little adventure hats into the stream. Otherwise, thank you all so very much for hanging out. I did not do any Gundam streaming over the weekend last week because I had to do work. It is not likely that I'll be able to do anything this weekend. I've got so much stuff going on right now. I would love to go do some Gundam stuff over the weekend, but it might not happen. Anyway, next time that we'll definitely see you is next Thursday night. And I don't know exactly what we're going to cover because I'm only thinking 1 week ahead of time. But anyway, we're going to go raid 8 p.m. Show 8 p.m. some love. I'll see you all next time. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for hanging with me when the stream's crashing. And I'll see everybody next time.